right now. Let's go. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of The Hype Show. I am Big J all day, aka the Mighty Big J. This is episode 6. Please do me a huge favor, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Definitely helps the channel out. We're going to be going till about 1 p.m. Eastern time when the games kick off. So let's definitely dive right into this. We're definitely going to touch base and talk about the game that happened on Thursday night, the Thursday night matchup between the Giants and 49ers. Go into that in great detail, and then we'll talk about the rest of the action for week 3 with all the games going on today. Sunday night football and also the games going on this evening, or Monday evening, excuse me. There's 2 games Monday night actually this week as well. So we'll definitely touch base on that. Again, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you've done so before, I really appreciate that very much. Let's get into this thing, baby. Let's get hype here. All right, so the Thursday night game, again, the New York Giants visiting the San Francisco 49ers here. The final of that game was the 49ers winning 30-12. A very game that was pretty much on pace with what I thought it was going to be. Very uneventful as far as what the Giants did on their side of the ball as far as offense and defense. And the 49ers showed again that they're one of the top teams in the NFC, if not the NFL. Daniel Jones, again, he had a very, very rough day. Looking at the statistics here on that game, I just feel like Daniel Jones once again keeps proving me right. As far as what he can do, because again, he passed for under 200 yards. Looking at the statistics here, Brock Purdy, he passed for over 300 yards for the second time in 3 games here. Specifically, the statistics for Brock Purdy, let me go back here. His statistics 25 of 37 for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Daniel Jones was 22 of 32 for 137 yards and an interception. The touchdown that they did get was on a running play by Matt Breida, 4 carries for 17 yards. He's filling in for Saquon Barkley, and the team as a whole only managed 29 yards on the ground. So they didn't even have 200 yards as a team in offense, the New York Giants. So just a rough day all around here, and they're just off to a rough start at 1-2 here. The San Francisco 49ers, however, Brock Purdy, as I touched on earlier just a bit ago, 25 of 37, 310 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. As far as running the football, they also got a lot of effectiveness out of Christian McCaffrey, 18 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. Elijah Mitchell also spelled him with 11 carries for 42 yards, and Jordan Mason had 3 carries for 11 yards. As a team, they had 141 yards on the ground. Again, most of those coming from Christian McCaffrey. So they were effective running the football, but passing the football, they really put on a show. Deebo Samuel had 6 catches for 129 yards and a touchdown. He had George Kittle, also the tight end, had 7 catches for 90 yards. Chris McCaffrey, to go along with his running yards, he had 5 catches for 34 yards, including a 17-yard catch. He was targeted 5 times and caught all of them. And as a team, they had 310 yards receiving. So just as a whole, the 49ers were just very efficient and the Giants weren't efficient at all. The leading receiver for the Giants was Darius Slayton with 3 catches for 32 yards. Backup running back Gary Brightwell had 2 catches for 31 yards. And wide receiver Paris Campbell had 6 catches for 24 yards. So not much to talk about again as far as what the Giants were able to do. Tight end Darren Waller had only 3 catches for 20 yards. He was targeted 7 times. He was only able to get 3 catches out of it. And this New York Giants team they're in trouble right off the bat. I know they still have 14 games to play, but depending on what the Commanders, Eagles, and Cowboys do today, they're going to be at least down at least 1 game because again, all those teams that I mentioned, they're 2-0. The Cowboys, the Eagles, and Commanders are all 2-0. So they're just in a hole already right off the bat as far as that division. And going back to the playoffs this year is going to look a lot tougher. It's going to be a much tougher ordeal to get back to the playoffs as they did last year. So we'll just have to see how things unfold with the Giants. The 49ers, on the other hand, they're just continuing to prove what I thought all along, that they're one of the top 2 teams. It's them and the Dallas Cowboys at this point in the NFC, with the Philadelphia Eagles bringing up the rear right behind them as far as the best teams. They improved to 3-0 in their division here, and they'll have another 10 days before their next game. The problem that I see here again is that Saquon Barkley for the Giants, he's going to be out multiple weeks with that ankle injury, and they just couldn't do anything with him. The problem with the Giants is a lot to do with personnel more so than talent. They're missing guys that from last year that contributed. Saquon Barkley was pretty healthy last season. And also, when you're missing your left tackle, Andrew Thomas, who had a hamstring issue, that's going to cause issues on the blind side as far as protection for Daniel Jones a lot anyway. So, me personally, I just don't think it has anything to do more so with the ability of the team. It's just the availability of the team. It's what's affecting the Giants a lot right now. The San Francisco 49ers, again, there's nothing much as you can really say as far as what they did and what they're going to do going forward. That's going to be the key for them is if they can stay healthy and keep guys, they're going to keep rolling here. Again, their next game is October 1st here, so that's a week from today here, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, week 4. They'll be again playing at home against the Arizona Cardinals. And then the following week here, another home game, Sunday Night Football, week 5, 8:20 p.m. Eastern, the Dallas Cowboys. One thing I would strongly, strongly, strongly keep in mind if I were the San Francisco 49ers is not overlooking the Arizona Cardinals on the way to playing the Cowboys. It's very easy for a team to do that, especially with the Cardinals being an 0-2 team at this current point. The Arizona Cardinals, they've lost their games, but they've lost their games fighting. They've shown that they got some fight in them and they really want to play, even though they don't have the guys they used to have. So the Cardinals and 49ers, I'm still taking the 49ers to win that football game, but the Cardinals, they're showing that they're pretty scrappy despite not having had all those star-studded names that they've had in the past. So that's going to be something to definitely focus on if you're the 49ers. After that, they're after the Cowboys game, week 5, they're at Cleveland, week 6, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Week 7 is this Monday night football game. They're at the Minnesota Vikings, October 23rd, 8:15 p.m. And then after that, they will be at home against the Cincinnati Bengals just 6 days later, Sunday, October 29th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. And then they'll have their bye week after that. So the next 5 games here, I can see them winning all those except for the Dallas game. We're definitely gonna have to keep an eye on the Dallas game. And we're also gonna touch on them a little bit later on today as they have their game and kind of see what they're gonna look like. They did suffer an unfortunate injury earlier in the week to quarterback Trayvon Diggs. He's gonna be out for the season. He tore his ACL in drills and practice on Thursday. And that's definitely going to hurt the team quite a bit. So we'll really have to see how that's going to affect them as a whole. But really looking forward to that game here in a couple weeks. San Francisco and Dallas. That's definitely going to be a heavyweight fight. As for the New York Giants and their schedule here, at 1-2, we'll just have to see how things pan out. Their next game actually isn't until October 2nd. So that's going to be a week from Monday. That's Monday night football game at home, 8:15 Eastern against the Seattle Seahawks. Then 6 days later, on October 8th, they're at the Miami Dolphins for their Week 5 game. That's 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And the following week, they're at the Buffalo Bills for Sunday Night Football, 8:20 Eastern, October 15th. They'll be home their next couple of games after that. The Washington Commanders will be visiting them October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. And then the New York Jets also come to town that following week here. That's considered a home game, even though they both play in the same stadium. That'll be a home game for the Giants. October 29th, 1 p.m. Eastern, CBS. So looking at the Giants' next 5 games, again, their problem is not having guys healthy. If this team were to have stayed healthy like they did in 2022, I could see them winning a few of these football games. But just due to the simple fact that we don't know how long Saquon Barkley is going to be out or their left tackle, having to depend on Daniel Jones, being forced to depend on Daniel Jones, I mean, they paid him 40 million a year, or excuse me, they signed him to a contract where they're paying him 40 million a year. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you have to show what you can do with or without your people in place. When they pay you that kind of money, there's just a level of expectation that's in place. So, for me personally, Daniel Jones has really got to show what he can do. He's shown in spurts what he can do, but At the same time, if you're missing guys, that makes it kind of tough. It's just kind of like a really tough situation all the way around. Of those 5 games that they got coming up here, as we get closer, we'll definitely predict them. Coming up, I can definitely see them losing that Seattle game because Seattle is gonna have a way on defense of making things tough for Daniel Jones again. The pass rush that they've seen over the course of 2 of their 3 games with Dallas and San Francisco, those are 2 of the best pass rushes in the game. So, naturally, you're gonna have trouble. But the Seattle game, they're gonna have trouble because of their secondary. He makes a lot of passes that are very ill-fated and ill-timed, and I can definitely see that being a factor for him against losing that Seattle game, throwing a few interceptions. Seattle's got that secondary, if they're healthy, that can really take that ball away from you, so that's gonna be a tough one. At Miami, that one's gonna be a loss too because it's gonna be a situation where that offense that Miami has, even if Jalen Waddle misses any additional time, including today, I think he'll be back by then. That's a couple weeks out, so I'll say he'll be back for that. At Miami is gonna be a tough one too. That's gonna be a tough one because they got a great offense and they got a very balanced defense as well, and they're playing with their heads on fire because I feel like they wanna keep pace in that division and win that division. Excuse me, it's been a while since the Dolphins have won that division. Same thing with at Buffalo that following week. That's gonna be a tough game as well because Buffalo, at that point in the season, they're gonna wanna bring their A game and show people that they're legit. Home against the Washington Commanders, that's also a dangerous game. We'll talk about them in their game later today, but they've shown that they can ball. If they can get a win today, I'll feel like they're a legit football team. And Washington wasn't even a bad football team last year. I just feel like with injuries and a couple of, and being weak at the quarterback position hasn't been solidified for Washington in quite some time. So I felt like that was kind of what kind of was a negative on their season for the last few seasons, but they still, with everything they had to overcome, were an 8-1 football team. That's basically 500 football. They were last place in their division because the Eagles, the Giants, and the Cowboys were better record-wise. They were all just better teams last year. Washington by no means was a bad football team, and by no means were a slouch of any kind. So again, looking at that, they could lose that game because who knows better? Who knows you better than your divisional opponents? Washington is going to know the Giants very well, and then that Jets game, that is going to be interesting because that'll probably, interestingly enough, be the first time all season that the Giants may have the better quarterback between him and Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson is still in the lineup at that time, that would be interesting. I think the Giants could win that one. So that would make the Giants a 1-4 football team over the next 5 games, and if you're 1-4 over the next 5 games, that's gonna put you at 2-6 through 8 games, and that pretty much screams, not making the playoffs. That pretty much screams hitting the offseason early, so that's gonna be rough for them. Looking at the schedule for the rest of the day, let's definitely get off that Thursday game and kinda take a look and see what we got starting today. The first set of games here I'm going to review over the next 20, 30 minutes or so. These all are going to be starting at 1 p.m. Eastern today. The first game on the docket is the Tennessee Titans at the Cleveland Browns. That game is going to be 1 p.m. Eastern at Cleveland. Cleveland, of course, with that awful injury to Nick Chubb, they picked up Jerome, or they have Jerome Ford starting as the running back for the number one, but they also brought back the running back Kareem Hunt to help them out in the offense, and I think that's really going to make things easier on Jerome Ford as well to have him in there because Kareem Hunt was with the team the last 4 seasons, and he knows the offense pretty well already. So that's going to help spell him. As far as the Tennessee side, the Titans, they're 1-1, and they've kind of gotten off to a rough start themselves. They look kind of sluggish. So this game, to me, with the two 1-1 teams here, is going to come down to who executes better and who does what they need to do on offense. Ryan Tannehill, he's thrown 3 interceptions already in his first 2 games. Deshaun Watson, he hasn't looked quite like the man that they want, and as far as what they're paying him. So that's going to be a tough one to call here. But as far as I'm concerned, with the Browns being at home here, I can see them looking to kind of get themselves back up and pick themselves back up on their feet and do what they need to do and get that victory. So I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns in a close one. I'm not sure why I'd be taking them, but the simple fact that they're at home, I think is going to help. but the Titans really haven't impressed me. They just haven't. They just haven't really shown me that they're that team yet. So I just don't really look at them and I say to myself, yeah, they're going to definitively win this game. So I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns to win that game. And let's take a look at the next few games Cleveland is going to have after this game here today. Um, the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be home against them in a week, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 1st. Then at week 5, they have a bye week. So they're going to kick off the bye weeks with a few other teams. Week 6, they're back at it at home against the 49ers. The following week here, they're at the Indianapolis Colts, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd. And then they're at the Seattle Seahawks October 29th, 4:05 p.m. Eastern. So, you know, looking at their next few games here after today, Baltimore and San Francisco are going to be tough, even with that bye week in the middle. That bye week, week 5, is going to help Jerome Ford absorb the playbook a little more. This is only his second season, so that'll help him absorb the playbook a little more, but it won't do them much as far as anything else. Because again, I don't really like early bye weeks. And with them having a bye week on week 5, that means they're gonna have to play the rest of their games week 6 through week 18. That means 13 straight games before they even could possibly make the playoffs if that's a possibility. So that's gonna be a huge deal. But we'll have to see. Again, they're at the Indianapolis Colts October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern, and then at the Seattle Seahawks October 29th, 4:05 p.m. Eastern for their week 8 matchup. Um, Again, over those 5 games here, I got them winning today, but I can see them losing to Baltimore. Baltimore, we'll talk about them as well. They're missing a lot of guys off the rip as far as injury. That's one thing that's definitely gonna affect Baltimore is having injury in a lot of key spots. Um, but home against Baltimore, we'll talk about that one next week. Um, that's gonna be a good one. Home against the 49ers, I'm gonna go ahead and make that an L because the 49ers, again, they're one of the top teams as far as I'm concerned. At the Indianapolis Colts, I think Cleveland can win that game, actually. I really do think Cleveland can win that game. Indianapolis, to me, is not only are they young, but Anthony Richardson is already going to be out with injury, and he left early his first 2 games of the season with injury already. He's going to have to figure out a way to keep himself protected on the field. I'm not sure if Gardner Minshew will still be their quarterback at that time, but, Anthony Richardson, he really has to find a way to keep himself protected. I could see the Browns winning that game based off the fact that Indianapolis is a young team and they don't really have pieces everywhere. They got a couple studs here, Michael Pittman Jr. at the wide receiver position. I don't know what the status of Jonathan Taylor will be at that game. He's on the pup list, so at least gonna at least miss this week and next week for the Colts. And beyond that, it's kinda up in the air. That's definitely a mystery. So we'll have to take a look at that and see what happens at that particular time. The Cleveland Browns will be at the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to be, again, 4:05 p.m. Eastern, October 29th. That's interesting to me. I think Seattle will probably win that game here just due to the simple fact that Cleveland is traveling out west and just Seattle is a slightly better football team. They kind of got it back right last week and week 2. So I think Seattle will win that football game. So for me, if that's a situation where the Browns go 3-2 based on prognostication, that'll put them at 4-3 through 8 weeks with by them having a bye week already. So that's not too bad. Again, that division is pretty tight. Baltimore has their own issues. Cincinnati, we're going to touch on. They have their own issues as well, especially with Joe Burrow and possibly being out for tomorrow night's game. And the Cincinnati or the excuse me, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they kind of have their own issues as well. They got a very young team and they got some issues they got to work out as well. So there's no definitive winner of who's going to win it in the AFC North. So that's just something we'll definitely touch on and take a look at further as we get to that time. The Tennessee Titans, on the flip side, as we look at their schedule after Cleveland today, they're home against the Cincinnati Bengals October 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. The following week, they're at the Indianapolis Colts, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 8th. And then for the Baltimore Ravens game, October 15th, that is an international game here that's being played in England, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday, October 15th. So that's considered a home game for Baltimore. So Tennessee, they're traveling to England with them, and that's a road game for them. They'll be home against the Atlanta Falcons October 29th after they have their bye week, week 7. And that'll be 1 p.m. Eastern, on CBS. So after today's game against Cleveland, they're home against Cincinnati. I'm going to take Tennessee now because Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, that thing is very up in the air. And again, I mentioned a long time ago with the situation when you have those kind of injuries, you need rest. And when you're dealing with this early in the season, where are you going to get that rest from? And furthermore, if you have a calf issue, it's been said that that can lead to other problems, whether it's a hamstring, an Achilles tendon, all that is connected. So it's going to be a tough battle for Cincinnati if they don't have Joe Burrow. They're already looking at the bottom. They're already at the bottom of the division this early. So that's going to be a tough one. I could see Tennessee taking that one, depending on how Joe Burrow looks and how the rest of the personnel on that team is doing. Week 5, again, they're at the Indianapolis Colts. I could see them taking that game because Indianapolis, they have a lot of issues with personnel themselves and youth also. So I could see Tennessee winning at Indianapolis. The Baltimore game, the international game versus Baltimore, that's they're both traveling across the country, across the pond, so to speak. So for me, it's just hard to call those games as far as who's going to do what because there's no dominant factor whatsoever with those international games. So I'm that's a toss up. We'll get to that game further down the line, but I'll say Tennessee for now. And then the bye week that they have week 8, and then they'll be home against the Atlanta Falcons October 29th. And I say they win that football game close. So the Tennessee Titans, I picked Cleveland to win today, but I could see them beating Cincinnati, Indy, and Atlanta. That'll put them at 3-2 over their next 5 games as well, and also make them a 4-3 football team with their bye week already. So in the AFC South here, that's kind of solid because Houston and Indianapolis, those are young teams that I don't see performing that well. And Jacksonville, they're still kind of slow out the gate. Also, they're also a 1-1 football team, just like Tennessee. So again, there's no definitive anything as far as who's dominating that division yet. So we're gonna have to see as things go on and see as things get closer who's gonna win that division. But I can see Tennessee being a 4-3 football team through 8 weeks. Moving on to the rest of the schedule here, moving on to our next game here, also 1 p.m. Eastern, the Atlanta Falcons are visiting the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. 1 p.m. Eastern, again, that's going to be one of those games here I'm looking at because of a couple of things that are going on here. The Atlanta Falcons, I like the Atlanta Falcons because of a couple things that have occurred here on their team that I'm seeing. Number one, Bijan Robinson was definitely a great pick for them because he does everything that you need to do as far as offense. He runs the ball really well. He catches the ball out of the backfield. And there's also a thing where I see he could help out Ritter. Kyle Pitts, their tight end, their 3rd-year tight end out of Florida, he's kinda disappeared. He had a great rookie season in 2021, and then last year was very disappointing, and he's continuing that trend this year as far as catches and as far as what he's doing for the football team. He's definitely not the leading receiver by any means. He's actually 4th. He's been targeted 8 times through 2 games and only has 59 receiving yards, no touchdowns. The top receivers, ironically, are Bijan Robinson is 3rd on the team and he's got the most catches as well. He's got 10 catches on 11 targets. So Bijan Robinson is one of your best receivers and your best running back, which is what you're going to need if you're Desmond Ritter. This team as a whole, to me, their offense is still a work in progress, but it's looking a lot better than it did last season, just off of the addition of someone like a Bijan Robinson. On the flip side, the Atlanta Falcons' opponent here today, looking at their schedule, looking at their team, and looking at who they are as a whole, the Detroit Lions, to me, again, I have to temper my expectations and dial it back a bit as far as who they are, because again, with you losing C.J. Gardner Johnson to that pec injury, it's unknown how long he's going to be out, but having him out for any extended period of time is going to hurt. They're getting contribution from their rookies. That's one thing I can't say about this team. The top 4 rookies that they drafted are all starters. Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, Jack Campbell, he was also taken in the first round out of Iowa. Sam Laporta, the tight end out of Iowa, and Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. These guys are contributing right off the bat. So that's one thing about this Detroit team. Even though they're a younger team, they got guys that have shown that they can play. Um, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver for the Lions, he is going to play today here. He has an injured toe. He's playing with a steel plate in his boot. I guess he suffered that last week, and he's playing steel plate in his shoe to keep his toe from bending. I guess he's having issues with that toe. Will that slow him down? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about that. But as far as I'm concerned, with the Falcons rolling into town, anything is possible with this team. Um, as far as who I'm gonna take to win this football game, Falcons and Lions. Man, this is gonna be a tough one. This is definitely gonna be a tough one because again, I have to dial down my expectations as to what the Lions are gonna be. And the Falcons are already off to a 2-0 starting to show that they got potential. I'm gonna take the Lions close. I'm gonna take the Lions to win this game by a field goal. Interesting enough, the line is 3.5 if you're a betting person, so that's 4 points or more, and you're good to go. I can see them take hitting that line and winning this game like a 31-27 type deal. Jared Goff is nice. Jared Goff can play. Um, he can definitely play. He definitely can show what he's got. We're still waiting to see what Desmond Ritter's got, but as he gets more reps and gets more experience, he'll definitely do what he needs to. After this game here today, looking at the Lions over the course of their other games they got coming up here, they're at the Green Bay Packers for Thursday night football this week here. So I'll be touching on that game in a couple of days here and seeing predicting who's going to win that. The following week here, 10 days later, they are home against the Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. That's their week 5 matchup. Week 6, they're at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1 p.m. Eastern on October 15th. And then the following week, week 7, they are at the Baltimore Ravens, October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. So I'm taking the Lions close today at Green Bay. I genuinely think they're going to show out. They won at Green Bay last year with Aaron Rodgers still in the lineup and with a lot of those guys that they still had in place. So I think they're still going to go up to Green Bay and get that football game. And then home against the Carolina Panthers here on October 8th. That gives them 10 days between games. I can see them winning that game as well. At Tampa and at Baltimore are a little trickier than they used to be because Tampa is off to a great start as well, and we'll touch on them later in today as far as their game. They've shown that they got some moxie and they got some guts. Mike Evans, the wide receiver for Tampa, stated that he really enjoys Baker Mayfield's attitude, and they have a great chemistry so far. So that's what I was looking for to start the season. It looks like it's developed. So at Tampa Bay could be tricky. Could be a tricky game. That defense is also coming together here. Shaq Barrett is back from that Achilles tendon injury, and that's going to do David make a lot of things happen for Tampa on defense. So I'm actually going to take Tampa to squeak by in that game, and we'll touch more on it as we get closer to that one. That one's a few weeks out. And then at Baltimore, October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern. Um, well, as that game gets closer, we'll kind of know more, and things will have developed by then. But I could see them winning that game. Actually, I could see them squeaking by. So with the Detroit Lions here today, again, I'm going to take the Lions by a field goal against the Falcons today, and I'm also taking them to win the Packers. So over the course of their next 5 games, they're going to be a 4-1 football team, in my opinion, and that'll put them at 5-2, and that'll put them in great shape in that division because you already have the Bears and Vikings off to an 0-2 start. And if you're playing the Packers head to head and you get a victory, that helps. So I'm going to take the Lions to be a 4-1 football team in those 5 weeks. And as we get closer to these games here, we're going to predict them again. Anyhow, kind of let you know how I feel about them. And that's going to be that for that game here. Excuse me. The next game we're going to talk about here, the New Orleans Saints at the Green Bay Packers. That's 1 p.m. Eastern at Lambeau Field. That game is going to be on Fox as well. That game to me it screams out grudge match. The Saints are favored by 1 point in Vegas, but I just don't know what they're going to do because there's a couple things that I don't really like about the Saints. They haven't dominated. They squeaked by the Titans and they squeaked by the Panthers on Monday Night Football this past week. The Panthers are by no means a great team, and they actually showed some guts late and kind of made it a game. But the Saints haven't dominated to me. And then the Packers, they dominated the Bears week 1, which has been par for the course with that matchup. But as far as week 2 against Atlanta last week, there was just a lot of bad execution, a couple of injuries to key players, and just a lot of miscues with the Packers. Them being at home is definitely going to be a thing that I like and help them out a lot. Derek Carr so far, he has 533 yards passing, but he only has one touchdown to show for that. Jordan Love has six touchdowns. He's thrown three in each game, so that's very encouraging if you're the Packers. Aaron Jones is actually questionable for this game. Actually, he's dealing with a hamstring issue. He may go today, though. Actually, he's not listed on the final report like a lot of other players are, so he may go today. Um, in my opinion, I think the winner of this game is going to come down to execution and who doesn't turn the ball over. I think that's what's going to be the key. So personally, I'm going to take the Packers to win this game close and an upset of sorts. Again, the Saints are favored by one in Vegas, but I'm going to take the Packers to win this game close. As long as Jordan Love doesn't turn the ball over and he learns how to and he executes the way he needs to, they'll be fine. They got some good players, some young ones on the team. We actually just got, it looks like we just announced actually that Aaron Jones is going to be inactive today. So he's not playing on that hamstring. He was just actually placed on the final report for the Packers as inactive. So actually not going to be playing after all with that hamstring. Hamstrings are tough, just like that calf muscle. You need to rest it and make sure that you're good to go because any kind of movement with those muscles and you can re-injure it again. So sounds to me like it's going to be a situation where he may miss multiple weeks, but he's definitely missing today. That's going to be the second game he's going to be out. So interesting. That's very interesting that they're not going to have him. That might switch my pick, honestly, because he's what makes that offense go. AJ Dillon is more of your standard running back. He runs the football, he runs with force, he runs with power, and he'll catch you a few passes out of the backfield, but he's mostly just a running back that likes to run straight ahead. Yeah, Jones being out is huge for them. I'm actually gonna stick with the Packers and kind of see what happens. Um, but that's huge for not having them. Home against Detroit on Thursday. I'm sticking with that Detroit Lions pick on Thursday Night Football, September 28th. They have their next game 11 days later against the Las Vegas Raiders. They're at Las Vegas, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, October 9th on Monday Night Football. Then they have a bye week, and then they're at the Denver Broncos October 22nd, 4:25 p.m. Eastern for their Week 7 matchup. Their next two home games are going to be against the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams, respectively. Each of those games are 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. So I'm gonna stick with the Packers to win today, but they're gonna lose to Detroit. They're at Las Vegas, at the Raiders, and that's 11 days after the Thursday night football matchup. So that'll give some time for Aaron Jones to get healthy. And if they can get him back, that'll be pivotal for winning that game. They have a bye week after that, so that's also going to be helpful for at Denver, October 22nd as well, and then they're home against the Minnesota Vikings. So after these next couple games here today against the Saints and on Thursday against Detroit, their scheduling gets kind of interesting as far as the gaps between their games. So this is what I'm looking at here. They're gonna win the game today. That's my prediction. They'll win the game close. The Detroit Lions, they'll lose that game. At the Raiders, I'm gonna take the Packers to win that game on the road. And at Denver, I'm going to take the Packers to win that game, unfortunately, too, because the Denver Broncos let Sam Howell get busy last week, and I just can't get that image out of my head of how Denver let that game go. They have a propensity to let games go, even though they have the talent and personnel to win and show spurts of greatness. And if that keeps rearing its ugly head, I could see that being a factor against the Packers there that day. The Green Bay Packers will be home against the Minnesota Vikings October 29th, as I stated, and I feel like Minnesota, it'll be colder and it'll be kind of damper in the Bay by then, and it'll probably possibly could be some snow on the field. You just never know. But Minnesota, they've put up some numbers, but they just don't make the end zone enough, and they don't execute at the right time. I'll predict that game as we get closer to it, but for now, I'll stay with Green Bay winning at home. And the Rams at home, November 5th, that following week, I could see the Rams coming in and doing some work because we've underestimated that team with the players that they have, based on the players they have and the personnel that they've lost. So I'll make a prediction as we get closer to that game, but I can see the Rams coming in there and stealing that. So Based on what I'm looking at here today with the Green Bay Packers here between their victory today and the games they got coming up, I can see them being 3-2 over the next 5 games. 3-2 over the next 5 games, and if they can do that, that'll put them at 4-3 with that bye week already happening there for week 6. So, Green Bay Packers, they're kinda up in the air, but they'll at least be kinda in the mix of things here. Looking at the Saints and looking at what they got going on here as far as their schedule, again, I picked them to lose at Green Bay today. That would put them at 2-1. Home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be an interesting game here because I feel like Tampa Bay's defense is coming along, and Baker Mayfield is actually out to prove that he's not done by any means, and he has a great chemistry with Mike Evans, as I touched on. So give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to take that football game here. That would put the Saints at 2-2. Then they're at New England week 5 and at Houston week 6. I could see the Saints losing that game, unfortunately, also, but bouncing back to defeat Houston. That would be a 3-game skid if you count the Green Bay game today, Tampa Bay and New England, possibly. That's possibly a 3-game skid if my predictions are correct. And they would beat Houston. For Thursday night football, they're home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 8:15 p.m. Eastern on October 19th on Amazon Prime. Interesting game. The Jacksonville Jaguars, on paper, are the better football team, and Calvin Ridley is clearly the number one guy. But things happen in football, as I said. So as we get closer to that game, I'll have a firmer prediction. But I'm going to say for now that the Jacksonville Jaguars take that. So, based on my prognostication, I'll put the Saints at 1-4 over their next 5 games, which would make them a 3-4 football team. Again, they would still be in the mix because of the way that division is put together and the teams that are in it. So that doesn't put them out by any means. The winner of that division could possibly be 9-8, 10-7. You won't even have to be like 12-5 to really do anything in that division because everybody's kind of still kind of stuck in that muddled area of who's going to do what. So, that takes care of that game, and we'll just kinda have to see how things unfold, but, Saints and Packers, 1 p.m. Eastern. The next game I wanna talk about, I touched on a little bit here, but I'm gonna go on more depth here. The Denver Broncos are traveling to Miami to visit the Miami Dolphins. That game is 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Broncos are 0-2, losing both of their games at home, and this Dolphins, ironically, are 2-0, winning both of their games on the road. So the Chargers and the Patriots, their first 2 victories so far here. So, they're looking to go 3-0 here and get that start, get things going right as the way they should here. They're gonna be missing a key player, unfortunately, here. Wide receiver Javon Waddle did not pass the concussion protocol. He suffered a concussion against the Patriots last week, and he did not pass protocol. So they're holding him out for today's game, so he'll be out for the Miami Dolphins. On the flip side, for the Denver Broncos, Justin Simmons here, he actually missed practice this week, and he's been listed as inactive as well and won't be playing for the Broncos on defense. This game, I'm still going to take the Miami Dolphins. The Denver Broncos, I just they have a propensity to do this thing where they have a game in their grasp or they have a game close and they just wet the bed. And it's crazy to me. It's not a situation where this has been occurring over just the last couple of years. This has just kind of been their MO since Peyton Manning retired. They didn't have these moments from 2012 to 20 through 2015. They just really didn't. And if they did, they were few and far between. But the Denver Broncos, I just can't get the taste out of my mouth of them being up 21-3 on the Washington Commanders last week and just kind of letting the game slip, starting with the middle of the second quarter on. That Hail Mary that Russell Wilson threw, it shouldn't have had to come down to that, plain and simple. So, as far as this game today here, even without Waddle being there, I'm still going to take the Denver Broncos to lose this game and fall at 0-3. One bright spot that I've seen on the offense for the Denver Broncos is Marvin Mims Jr., the rookie wide receiver out of Oklahoma. He has 4 catches and 122 yards and a touchdown. That yardage and 2 of those catches came last week in his effort against the Washington Commanders. He had those 2 catches for 111 yards and a touchdown. So they're going to be incorporating him more into the lineup. And right off the bat, he's showing he can produce. I've kind of been waiting for Judy to be that guy, and it just hasn't happened. And this guy's showing off the bat that he can play. So I look for Russell Wilson to incorporate him more in the passing game a lot. On the flip side, Tua, he's going to be throwing that ball a lot to Tyreek Hill, and I don't see why not. Tyreek is the man, and he showed that right off the bat. He showed he's not slowing down anytime soon. Again, I'm taking the Dolphins to improve to 3-0, and I'm going to take the Broncos to lose that game. Looking at the Dolphins' schedule after they win this game today here, that's my prediction at least. I hope it goes well for the Broncos, but they just haven't shown me anything as far as making these moves that they need to be a winning football team. I just haven't seen it yet. So we'll just have to see here. With the Dolphins here, they are at Buffalo next week, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS for their Week 4 matchup. They're home against the New York Giants, Week 5, October 8th, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. They're also home the following week against the Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 15th. And then for the following game, the Week 7 matchup here, Sunday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles. They'll be at Philly, 8:20 p.m., October 22nd on NBC. The Dolphins to me at Buffalo is going to be a slugfest. They've played Buffalo close already the last 2 years with different guys that weren't quite ready yet. So at Buffalo, I want to see how Buffalo looks against Washington today. We'll touch on that game in a little bit, but I really want to see how Buffalo looks. They're kind of up and down as far as what I thought they would be. Josh Allen again turning the ball over the first week, not turning the ball over the second week. That's just inconsistent. So Miami at Buffalo. I'm going to take Miami to win that game for now. At the home against the New York Giants and Carolina Panthers, those are cupcakes. There's no really such thing as cupcakes in football, but these are all professionals. But that's about as close to Duncan Hines as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to take them to win those games here. That would put them at 6-0. At Philadelphia is going to be tough. That defense is going to make it tough on Tua. They're absolutely going to make it tough on Tua. As time goes on here in those next 5 weeks, anything could happen. But I'm going to say that's the Dolphins' first losses against the Eagles. I'm going to say that's their first losses against the Eagles. That's going to make them a 6-1 football team. And that's going to put them at cruise control in that division, even without even having played the Jets yet, because you've already beaten the Patriots and the Bills based on my prognostication. And I got the Jets finishing last in that division now, without Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be last in that division for sure. So if you're beating Buffalo and you're beating New England right off the rip in your first part of your schedule, that's going to have you sitting pretty. So over the next 5 games, again, I got Miami going 4-1, and that's going to put them at 6-1 for their first 7 games to start the year, with them beating Denver today. So the Dolphins are in control as far as that's division. And the thing that bothers me the most about the Dolphins is that they can play better. That scares me. If you're other teams in the AFC, you better watch out because the Dolphins are actually going to get Jeff Wilson back at some point to help out their running game. And Jalen Waddle's going to also come back too. I mean, I know this is football, but if they can get all those guys back and have them for the long haul, Miami's going to be very dangerous. The Denver Broncos, let's prognosticate their schedule after today here. They're at Chicago October 1st here, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. The Bears, they have their own set of problems with Justin Fields at quarterback. They just aren't, it's just not working as far as what they want him to do. And I genuinely don't know if the coaching knows what they truly want to do with him. I see Denver stealing this game at Chicago. Because even with Denver's problems here, they don't have what Chicago has as issues. There's just a couple things here and there that Denver needs to really fix. Whereas Chicago, it's sad to say that they have a worse quarterback problem than the Denver Broncos do. The Denver Broncos are paying their quarterback a lot of money, but Chicago, they may need to go in another direction next season. It's a possibility, but I got Denver winning at Chicago. Home against the Jets October 8th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern on CBS. I'm going to take the Broncos to win that game too because again for the second week in a row the Broncos will have the better quarterback. In my position, they'll have at least a better quarterback situation, but I'm going to take the Broncos to win that one. Now, they have to turn around and play Thursday Night Football at Kansas City, October 12th, 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Amazon Prime, and they'll probably lose that one because at Kansas City hasn't been good to them over the last 5 years. So they'll probably lose that one. They'll be home against Green Bay 10 days later, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd. I talked about Green Bay a little bit ago as far as like how their scheduling lays with the next couple of games, and by the time they get to this game, they'll have their bye week already, and they'll probably be getting players back fresh. So Jordan Love, he doesn't have the experience that Russell Wilson has, but I have more belief that his future is going to be better. Russell Wilson's prime may be behind him. We don't really know. I'm going to take Green Bay, unfortunately, to win that game close. The Broncos will be then home against Kansas City after that, and they'll probably lose that one as well. Um, so the Broncos losing today, winning against Chicago and New York, and then losing Kansas City and Green Bay, that would put them at 2-3 over the course of the next 5 weeks, and that would make them 2-5. Yeah. 2 and 5 for the Broncos. I just don't there's just been too much talk the last couple of off seasons with the Broncos prior to this season, as far as Sean Payton coming in and fixing things. And as far as last season with them being this great team that everybody expected, they just fell well short of expectations. So the time for talking is just kind of done. We just got to see what this team is going to be for real. I just don't expect them to do things until they show me. There's just been a lot of talk, and I just want the Broncos to show me. So, again, over the next 5 games, they'll be 2-3, and they'll be a 2-5 football team through 7 weeks here. The next game coming up on the schedule, the Los Angeles Chargers are traveling to visit the Minnesota Vikings. Each team is 0-2. That game is 1 p.m. Eastern. And I gotta tell you, man, for both teams, this is a must win. Um, it's pick 'em as far as I'm concerned because each team has been disappointing. Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert are two of the top five passers as far as yards in the league. Kirk Cousins has over 700 yards passing with 6 touchdowns, but it hasn't led to wins. And more importantly, Justin Jefferson doesn't have any touchdowns through 2 games. They did acquire Cam Akers from the Los Angeles Rams early in the week to kind of help out the running game, but he's going to be inactive. He's going to be a healthy scratch while they get him going and get him kind of acclimated to the playbook. Very different playbook in Minnesota compared to what they do in Los Angeles. So they have to get him acclimated and get him through practice and see if they can get him going again. The Los Angeles Chargers here, running back Austin Eckler, he's going to be inactive again with that ankle injury he was dealing with. He also missed last week as well. So they're not going to have him either. That's going to be huge for the Chargers. The problem with the Chargers for me is this is you aren't devoid of what you need. You have pieces everywhere if you're the Chargers. If you look at them on offense and defense, they literally have pieces everywhere. There's no shortage as far as what they are. So it's just hard to say why they're not executing. And then the part that's also kind of scary is that their head coach, he's considered a defensive coach. So I just don't understand why he's not able to get this defense where they need to be as far as stopping the quarterback, especially week one with Tua. He just went nuts on him. Absolutely nuts, almost 500 yards passing. So as far as who I'm taking to win this game today, again, this is a pick 'em. Even Vegas has this as a pick 'em, as even. So if you bet on either team and you win, you're going to get some money out of this because Vegas doesn't even know what to do with this game. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to take the Vikings to win this game today. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to win this game because Austin Eckler being out is going to hurt the Chargers again. He does so much for that team. And just because of that, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to win this game. I'm going to take them by a touchdown. So that'll put the Chargers at 0-3. Let's look at the Minnesota Vikings schedule over the next few games after that. They're at the Carolina Panthers October 1st on Fox. That's a 1 p.m. Eastern game. The following week, they're home against the Kansas City Chiefs October 8th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. They're at the Chicago Bears, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 15th on Fox. And then they have Monday Night Football that following week for week 7 against the San Francisco 49ers, and they'll be home for that game, 8:15 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Interestingly enough, I can see Minnesota climbing out of this hole with a couple of these games they got coming up with Carolina and Chicago. Those games definitely jump out as games that they can take. And secondly, today I got them winning. So if you take them winning again this week, next week, and then Chicago, that'll still have them at 3-2 over the next 5 weeks and still have them at 3-4 in the division. Much like the NFC South, that division is going to be very muddled because they have Chicago with them at 0 and 2, and like I said, I think they'll beat them in a few weeks here. And then on top of that, Detroit and Green Bay at 1 and 1 are teams that I don't know what they're going to be. Chicago or Detroit has lost key players as far as injury, and Green Bay, they've had injury as well and just haven't shown any consistency on offense. So even if Minnesota does go 3 and 2 over their next 5 games to put themselves at 3 and 4, they'll still be in the mix for that division and they'll be right back in the thick of things. So Minnesota again at 0 and 2. This 0 and 2 doesn't hurt as bad as what other 0 and 2s could look like the Giants, for example, being a 1 and 2 team in that division. That's bad news because you don't have any company with you and you're ahead. You're down at least a couple games already. Looking at this game, looking at this team in this division with the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC North, I just don't see that being the case. So Minnesota will be fine. They'll get things together here. On the flip side, as far as the Los Angeles Chargers, I like I said, I'll have them at 0 and 3 after today. They'll be home against the Las Vegas Raiders October 1st, 4:05 p.m. Eastern on CBS. And I can see them winning that game to get themselves off the schneid and be a 1 and 3 team. They have a bye week, week 5. They have one of the early buys, and so week 6 they'll be back at home against the Dallas Cowboys, 8:15 p.m. Eastern from Monday Night Football, October 16th. So that's more than 2 weeks after their game next week that they'll be off and be ready to go. I still got Dallas. I still got Dallas winning that game, and they're also at Kansas City, October 22nd, that following Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to take Kansas City as well. Um, That's rough. That would put them at 1 and 3 over their next 4 games. And actually, I'm gonna say 2 and 3 because 'cause they're home against the Chicago Bears for Sunday Night Football, October 29th, 8:20 p.m. Eastern. So I'm gonna say 2 and 3 that they'll win that game. If they only go 2 and 3 over the course of their next 5 games, that'll put them at 2 and 5. I could see, and I hate to say this, but I could see Kevin O'Connell getting fired. Or I'm sorry, Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley's the coach for the Chargers. I could see him getting fired if they go that route, if they don't get it together. And that's unfortunate because this team has been blowing leads and blowing comebacks, letting teams come back on them the last few games, not just the 2 games of this season. If you go back to their wild card game against Jacksonville, they were up 30 to nothing and lost that game. You don't lose that game when you're up 30. So if it is a situation where the Chargers only go 2 and 3 over their next 5 games and they're 2 and 5, I could see him getting fired. And that's unfortunate, but they just have better expectations of that team. So that's just good how it is. The next game we're going to talk about here is the New England Patriots. Here they're traveling to visit the New York Jets. That's an AFC East matchup. That's 1 p.m. Eastern at MetLife Stadium. Jets are 1 and 1, while the Patriots are 0 and 2, losing both of their games at home to start the year, and they're trying to get that first win. Mac Jones hasn't looked bad so far. He's thrown 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions through 2 games. Zach Wilson, on the flip side, he had 3 interceptions last week against Dallas, and they just looked very ugly. The Jets team is they're trying to rebound from an ugly loss, and the Patriots are trying to get on the win column. But I'm going to take New England to win this game by a field goal. I think New England they showed Phil early that they have what it takes to hang with teams. They made it tough on Philly last week. I'm sorry, week 1. And in their week 2 game last week here, they just, to me, they didn't get blown out, but there was just spots that they missed against the Dolphins on that Sunday night football game. So I'm going to take the Patriots to win this game. The Jets haven't beaten the Patriots in a very long time, and a lot of that had to do with Tom Brady, but I just don't see that being a situation here where they're not going to lose. So give me the Patriots to win this game. And looking at their next games after that, they're at the Dallas Cowboys October 1st. That's 4:25 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win that game. The Patriots are then home against the Saints, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. They're at the Las Vegas Raiders, 4:05 p.m. October 15th. And then they are home against the Buffalo Bills October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. So I got the Patriots winning today. I think they'll lose to Dallas. I think they'll beat the Saints. I touched on that a little bit ago, and I'm going to say they're going to beat the Saints. At the Las Vegas Raiders, I could see them winning that game close too. That's kind of a pick 'em. and we'll know more as we get closer to that game. But that's kind of a pick 'em with the Patriots and Raiders right now. And home against Buffalo, I think Buffalo can win that game. So in all honesty, I got the Patriots being 3-2 over the next 5 weeks, and that'll put them at 3-4. The AFC East, all these divisions, there's nobody running away with anything yet at all. So we'll have a better idea of what they're going to be as we get closer to that week or to those games as they get by and as we get through these games. But I'm going to say they're 3-2 over their next 5 games and put them at 3-4. I'm going to say they're going to be 3-4 here. On the flip side here, looking at as far as what the Jets are going to be, they're going to be 1-2 after today, as I said here. And then prognosticating their games after that, they're home against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a loss. So that'll put them at 1-3. They're at the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to say the Broncos win that game as well. So that'll put them at 1-4. They're home against the Eagles, 1-5. They have a bye week, week 7, so they'll be off. And then they're at the New York Giants, October 29th, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. That's the same stadium that they both play in the same stadium, but that's a home game. And as I stated earlier in the broadcast, I stated that that would be one of the first times, or the first time all year, that the Giants have the better quarterback. I think Daniel Jones is better than Zach Wilson. He's nothing to really write home about in some of the what games he plays, but he's still better than Zach Wilson to me as far as his ability and what he's done. So I'm going to take the Giants to beat the Jets in that game. So I could see the Jets losing all these. I really could. The only game that jumps out as a game that they could take, unfortunately, is at the Denver Broncos. And that's because of the Broncos' propensity to give up leads and give up games that they shouldn't. But other than that, they could be 0-5 and then end up being a 1-6 football team through their next 5 games here. Wouldn't surprise me. They're not going to bring in another quarterback, and Zach Wilson has not shown you the guy. If it gets to be a point where you're this bad in the season, if you're the Jets, you have to ask yourself, do we draft another quarterback? Aaron Rodgers is supposed to be back next year based on how things go with his injury, but do you draft another quarterback? Because how long is Aaron Rodgers even going to be there if he does come back next season? This was going to be a season that he gets things started and you possibly build off next season. This Jets team is devastated because they put everything into Aaron Rodgers, as I keep saying. So if it gets to a point where you do lose these next 5 games, do you draft a quarterback? If you're the Jets, that remains to be seen. So I think the Jets are going to be out of it by the end of October, honestly. By the time October ends and we get towards November, they'll probably be out of it because their November games don't get any easier, and we'll touch to those as we get closer to them. But if you're the Jets, you have a lot of questions you got to ask here. Moving on to another 1 p.m. Eastern game here, we're looking at the Buffalo Bills are visiting the Washington Commanders at FedEx Field. The Bills are 1-1, and the Commanders are 2-0, along with the Eagles and Cowboys in the NFC East after their win over Denver. Looking at this matchup here, the Buffalo Bills, to me, I'm still considering them the better team. I'm not sleeping on them by any means. They just had a really ugly game against the Jets, but they had a really, really pretty game last week. So the Buffalo Bills, to me, I'm going to take the Bills by a touchdown to win this football game. The Commanders, they're nothing to sleep on. They have one game won at home against Arizona, and the game they won at the road at Denver was a game I feel like Denver gave them. But that doesn't mean by any means that Washington is a team that I feel like is like a fluke or anything like that. We'll just have to see if they're really for real. Again, I'm going to take the Bills to win this game by a touchdown today. That would put Washington at 2-1. I'm looking at Washington's schedule. They're at Philadelphia next week, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. That's October 1st. And I can see them losing that game as well. They have a Thursday night football game the following Thursday, October 5th at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. That's home against the Chicago Bears. Now they're going to get that win. That's going to put them at 3-2. They're going to lose these next couple games based on my predictions, and they'll win that game. So that'll put them at 3-2. Then they'll have 10 days between their next game, 1 p.m. Eastern on October 15th at the Atlanta Falcons. That game is going to be interesting because I think Washington can come in there and take that one too. Atlanta is a 2-0 team that has question marks just like Washington, but I think it has more to do with their youth more so than their ability. And I think they can take that game as well. So I think I'm gonna stick with taking Washington. I'll have a better idea of who I'm taking, but for now, I would say Washington. They're at the New York Giants, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd on CBS. That defensive line is going to give Daniel Jones problems if they have everybody in place and they don't have any issues as far as health. That is going to give them problems. Daniel Jones is going to have problems. If Saquon Barkley is back, he's going to have to possibly stay in and do some blocking because that defensive front made it tough on Russell Wilson last week. I saw that firsthand. So the Washington Commanders here, based on my prognostication, then I got them beating Chicago, Atlanta, and New York, and losing their next two games. So that will put them at 3-2 over their 5 game period, and that'll make them 5-2. Um, they're going to be in the mix in that division. They're definitely going to be in the mix in that division for sure. They were in the mix last year, just everybody else was just a lot better. They were never really out of it. It's just everybody else was just so much better. I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills here today. Again, I'm taking Buffalo to win that game at Washington. They're home against the Miami Dolphins October 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS. And that game right there is going to be a slugfest. Miami next week is going to be ready for them. If Jalen Waddle can play, I'm going to take Miami to win that game because Miami plays Buffalo close. Even though Buffalo gets the victory, they know how to play them close. So I'm going to take Miami to win that one for now. That would put Buffalo at 2-2. They have an international game against Jacksonville. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but they're going to be at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in England, October 8th. And that's technically considered a home game for Jacksonville, but both teams are traveling. I'm going to take Buffalo to win that game also. So that would put them at 3-2. They're home against the Giants for Sunday Night Football, 8:20 p.m. Eastern on NBC. I'm going to take them to win that game. At New England, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd on CBS. That's a game that they have week 7. Huh. Interesting, interesting. I honestly think New England has the defense and they know Josh Allen well. I'll have a better idea on who's going to win that game once we get closer to it. I said it's New England, so I'm going to stick with that for now. But as we get closer to that game here, we're going to have kind of a better idea of who's going to win that game. So I'm going to take Buffalo to be 3-2 over their next 5 games. That'll put them at 4-3. Things are going to be thick in the AFC East, and we're probably not going to know who's going to do what until we get later in the season, possibly like week 15, week 16. It may come down to tiebreakers, injuries, a whole lot of things. But Buffalo is definitely going to be in the mix here, and we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on them. But as far as them being a Super Bowl team and being a dominant team, we've been waiting on that for a few years, and I just don't know if that's ever gonna. I'm looking at another week matchup, week 3 matchup here at 1 p.m. Eastern. We've got the Houston Texans visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. That game is going to be excellent. I honestly think Jacksonville is going to show me something here today. They're home at Everbank Stadium. The Houston Texans here, they're not that thrilling to me, and they got a very young team, and they're going to have to show us what they can do. Trevor Lawrence here, he's been very mundane as far as his performance. His performance last week against Kansas City was not ideal at all, and he didn't play very well at all. He played excellent week 1 against the Colts, but Kansas City, they just made his day very difficult. Calvin Ridley is proving to be the number 1 receiver for this team. When you have Calvin Ridley and then you have Christian Kirk and you have Evan Ingram at tight end with Travis Etienne at the backfield, that's prime offense right there. That's the potential to be a great offense. So I look at Jacksonville and I think they're going to win this game today. The Houston Texans, like I said, they got a very young football team and they're just working out kinks and seeing if CJ Stroud is going to be their guy. So looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule, I'm gonna take them to beat the Houston Texans today. That would put the Texans at 0-3. That would put Jacksonville at 2-1. They're home against the Atlanta Falcons. That's an international game, October 1st. That's going to be played local time at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and that's at Wembley Stadium. That's considered a home game. They have to travel back to England again the following week against the Buffalo Bills, and that's being played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, October 8th. So after this game here today, they have 2 international games in England against the Falcons and Bills, respectively, and these are considered home games. So that's wow, that's rough. It makes me wonder if they're gonna stay in England or not. If you have back-to-back games in England, but just at different stadiums, it makes me wonder if Jacksonville's just gonna stay in England. Those are tougher games to call. October 15th, they're back home here in America at 1 p.m. Eastern, October 15th against the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they'll win that game as they did week one. Then they have a Thursday night football game at the Saints, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, October 19th on Amazon Prime. And I think they'll win that game as well. They're gonna win today, and those international games could really go either way. It's really odd that they've have 2 back-to-back international games. Most teams just have the one and they're good, but they have 2 of them, and that's before their bye week. They don't even have a bye week until November comes. Wow. We'll prognosticate those games as they get closer, but let's just say for the sake of argument, they win one, lose one. Let's just kind of just make it a split and say they win one, lose one. That would still put them at 4-1 over the course of the next 5 weeks. And at 4-1 over 5 weeks, that'll make them a 5-2 football team. That'll have them on top of the AFC South. They'll be on top of that division and they'll be sitting pretty. After that, as far as injuries and as far as the games going forward, we'll just have to see. But they'll be doing fine as far as that goes and sitting pretty. Looking at the Houston Texans here, they're already 0-2, and as I said, they're going to lose this game today to put themselves at 0-3. They're home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a couple injuries on their own, and they're still trying to work kinks out. And that game, I think, will be a little bit closer than we think because that offense for the Pittsburgh just hasn't impressed me yet. The defense is flying through 2 games, but the offense is just kinda and with Houston, they got a couple of guys on Houston's defense that are looking to get their name out there. Will Anderson Jr., the rookie out of Alabama, he was the 3rd pick in the draft, and he can play. That guy can play. He's showing that pedigree. I'm still gonna take Pittsburgh to win that game close. At Atlanta the following week, I'm gonna take Atlanta, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 8th. Home against the Saints, I'm gonna take the Saints to win that one. And this one I'm gonna take as an upset pick of sorts. They have their bye week, week 7, then they're back week 8 at Carolina, October 29th, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to take Houston to actually win that game and a squeaker because, again, Carolina and Houston are kind of in the same boat. They got a lot of young guys, they got a lot of picks. They got to see who's going to be what in the future for them. But I'm going to take Houston to win that football game. That would put them at 1-4 over the course of their next 5 weeks. 1-4 is going to make them a 1-6 football team at that point through 8 weeks with their bye weeks. So, not shocking there as far as what they're going to be. The last one, the game we're going to talk about here that's going to be played at 1 p.m. Eastern, that's the Indianapolis Colts visiting the Baltimore Ravens. That game, to me, I got Baltimore winning that game outright. There's nothing about that game that tells me that Indianapolis is going to win. Gardner Minshew is good in the start for them at quarterback with Anthony Richardson out. The Ravens, they have their own issues. They have a lot of guys out, including Odell Beckham, their left tackle Ronnie Stanley, and cornerback Marlon Humphrey. They're going to be all out today. And Justice Hill, who took over last week for J.K. Dobbins, the running back that's out for the season with the Achilles injury, he's out with the bad foot. So Baltimore, they got their own problems as far as personnel, but I still think they'll squeak by and win this game today. This is where things get tricky because their next 2 games are at Cleveland and at Pittsburgh, AFC North matchups. I could see them losing those because Cleveland and Pittsburgh know Baltimore well, and if Baltimore is missing this many guys already, that's gonna be tough on them. So that will put Baltimore at 3-2. They're home against the Tennessee Titans on October 15th. That game is being played in England at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, so that's an international game. But I'm still gonna take Baltimore over Tennessee in that game. Then they're home against the Detroit Lions October 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Give me Detroit on that one. I'm gonna take Detroit on that one. Baltimore, based on what I'm saying here and based on the predictions that I'm making here, they're going to be 3-2 over the course of their next 5 games, and that's going to put them at 5-2. But that would put them at 1-2 in their division if my predictions go correctly. So that's going to be something we have to watch out for. So I'm going to take again Baltimore Ravens to win this game here home against Indianapolis here. The Colts here is look as far as looking at their schedule and looking at what they're going to be here. Again, after today, they'll be 1-2. The next 2 home games are going to be against the Rams and Titans, respectively. I'm gonna take both of those teams to win those games. I'm gonna take the Rams to win week 4 and Tennessee to win week 5. They're at the Jacksonville Jaguars week 6, 1 p.m. Eastern, and then they're back home against the Cleveland Browns, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd. Um, wow. This is what I'm looking at here. The Rams have shown that they can ball. I had taken the Colts earlier in the season to win that game, but I'm gonna have to take that prediction back here. Based on my prognostication here, the best shot they got is home against the Tennessee Titans, October 8th. But even then, they will be 1-4 over the next 5 weeks, and that's going to put them at 2-5 at that 8 week period, or five that yeah, at that 7 game period. So the Colts, they're going to be in a position where they're going to have a top pick again. And it's just a matter of who and what they pick, what as far as what their needs are. Because as the season progresses and as things go on, we're going to have a better idea of what they are and what they need. But I can see them being 2-5 after 7 games. Moving to the 4:05 p.m. Eastern game, that is the Carolina Panthers. They are at the Seattle Seahawks here. Again, that's 4:05 p.m. Eastern. I talked about this game in one of my earlier broadcasts, and I honestly think that with Carolina traveling to Seattle, I think Seattle is going to get that win today. Carolina is already off to an 0-2 start, and they're behind the Falcons and Saints and Buccaneers right off the bat, and I think it'll stay that way as far as what they are for the season. Looking at the Seattle Seahawks schedule here and what they're going to be here after today's game, like I said, they're going to get the win. That'll put them at 2-1. They'll be at the Giants for Monday Night Football next week, and I think they'll win that one. They have a Week 5 bye week. Then they're at the Cincinnati Bengals October 15th, 1 p.m. Eastern. If Joe Burrow is hobbled in any kind of way, or if this team is missing key personnel, Seattle can steal that one. I'll have a better idea as we get closer to that game, but for now, I'm gonna say that's kind of a toss-up with Seattle and Cincinnati because of what's the trouble that Cincinnati is having. But I'm gonna say Seattle steals that one for now. They will be home against Arizona Cardinals October 22nd. I got them winning that game. And they'll also be home against the Cleveland Browns October 29th, 4:05 p.m. Eastern. That one's going to be a tough one, but I think they'll win that one as well. I think Cleveland will come in there and make a little bit of noise, but I think they'll take that game. So based on what I'm looking at with Seattle here today, the Giants game, they're going to win that. With Seattle, I'm saying that they're going to win that too. If Seattle can go 5-0 over these next 5 games, I'll really be impressed by that. I'm not gonna, based on prognostication, I know I'm saying that, but it'll be doubtful that they win all 5. That'll be really impressive. That will put them at 6-1, and they haven't played San Francisco yet. San Francisco comes on the back half of their schedule towards the end of the season. So if you're Seattle, if you can hang and get those wins off the bat with the Cardinals and Rams on your schedule, the divisional games, you'll be sitting pretty. Like I said, it's going to be really difficult for them to win those 5 games, but hey, we'll just have to see how things shake up here. The next couple games, those are each at 4:25 Eastern. This is the Chicago Bears visiting the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, that's 4:25 p.m. Eastern. Kansas City Chiefs, I got them winning this game at home. I just don't see any way that Chicago wins. Kansas City looked pretty sluggish against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, but I think they snap out of it and they look pretty today. I think they look good on offense. They're just trying to work out who these young players are, such as Rashee Rice. I'm the rookie wide receiver out of SMU. You got to figure out where he fits in that offense. You got to get Sky Moore going. Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelsey's your guy. Kansas City, they win this game going away. Then they're on the road. The next 2 games are at the Jets, 8:20 p.m. Eastern on October 1st. Then they're at the Minnesota Vikings, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, October 8th. I got them winning those games as well. They're home for Thursday Night Football against the Denver Broncos, October 12th, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, and then they're at the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm sorry, home against the Los Angeles Chargers, October 22nd, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. I got the Chiefs winning all of these games. I honestly think that Detroit game was a slap in the face, and you didn't have Travis Kelsey. So I got the Kansas City Chiefs winning these next 5 games, and it's not going to be a shock to me if they do. Looking at their opponents, the Bears, Jets, Vikings, Broncos, Chargers, they're clearly better than all of them. It would have to be a slip up or some sort of injury that caused them to lose these. So I think they'll be 6-1. Looking at the Chicago Bears, they got problems, man. I'm gonna definitely see what Justin Fields can do this afternoon, but they got problems. The Bears, I got them losing at home against Denver. That's probably the most winnable game, but I can still see them losing that game. That would put them at 0-4. They're at the Washington Commanders for Thursday Night Football, so just a 4-day turnaround. I can see them losing that game too because Washington looks pretty legit. Home against the Vikings on 1 p.m. Eastern, October 15th, 10 days later. That game is kind of a toss-up, but I still got Minnesota winning that one close because they've had great offensive numbers. They just haven't put the ball in the end zone enough, and the ball hasn't been ran very well. They're home against the Las Vegas Raiders, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd, and in all honesty, that game jumps out as a win. That's kind of a pick 'em because the Raiders haven't really impressed me that much either, but I can see the Bears possibly taking that game late. It's hard to say, but let's say for the sake of argument they do get a win. That would put them just at 1-4 over their next 5 games. That would put them at 1-6. So, yeah. That's kinda it's kinda gonna be tough for them. The final game of the afternoon before we touch on the Sunday and Monday Night Football games here, that's gonna be the, Dallas Cowboys visiting the Arizona Cardinals. I got Dallas winning that game going away, and looking at their schedule coming up here, they're home against New England, and that's a win. I just don't want them overlooking New England because they're at San Francisco October 8th for Sunday Night Football. That's gonna be a great game. San Francisco has the better offense, but Dallas has the better defense. So we'll know more as we get closer to that game. The Dallas Cowboys are at the Chargers for Monday Night Football, October 16th, and I got them winning that game. They're home after their bye week against the Los Angeles Rams, October 29th. I got them winning that game as well. So even if they were to lose to the San Francisco 49ers, they would still be 4-1 over their next 5 games, putting them at 6-1. And as far as the Philadelphia Eagles go, we're going to touch on them in a little minute here. Um, I honestly think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be up there with Philly and with Washington later in the season. That's just how things are looking. Now let's touch on the Sunday night football game. That's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Las Vegas to visit the Las Vegas Raiders here. That game is going to be on at 8:20 p.m. Eastern on NBC. The Pittsburgh Steelers, to me, they just didn't look that good last week. Um, they won, but they just didn't really impress me. I think that injury to Nick Chubb really took the air out of Cleveland's sails. And in all honesty, I think it's going to be a situation where Pittsburgh wins that game because of that. At Las Vegas and at Houston are the next couple of games here, as I stated. I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win those because that defense is going to harass Jimmy Garoppolo tonight, and Houston just doesn't have the pieces to really make it an interesting game. They're home against the Baltimore Ravens, a divisional opponent on October 8th before they have their bye week. So, in all honesty, I think it's a situation where they win that game against the Baltimore Ravens at home. They go into their bye week and they fly out to Los Angeles for that game October 22nd against the Rams. I got them winning that game as well. Then they're home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 29th. So, based on those games, if they can go 3-2, they'll put them in the mix at 4-3 in that division. Looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, they're a 1-1 football team here. And all honesty, the Broncos gave them that game week 1. I refuse to think anything less to that. As I said, they're going to lose to the Steelers here. They're at the Los Angeles Chargers, 4:05 p.m. Eastern, October 1st. They're home against the Green Bay Packers for Monday Night Football on October 9th. They're home against the New England Patriots just 6 days later, October 15th. Then they're at the Chicago Bears, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 22nd. I got them losing tonight, and I got them losing to at the Chargers. The Packers game is kind of a pick 'em, but I could see the Packers taking that game. I could also see New England taking that game and then winning at Chicago. Like I said, the Raiders just haven't impressed me that much. And I can see them going 2-3 over the next 5 games to be a 3-4 football team. Now, Monday Night Football, there are 2 games going on as there were last week here. You have 2 games going on for Monday Night Football. You have the Eagles visiting the Buccaneers. That game is going to be played at 7:15 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Tampa Bay Buccaneers game between them and the Eagles. Baker Mayfield has definitely impressed me so far because I had questions coming into the season if he could develop any kind of chemistry with Mike Evans or with Chris Godwin. and he's done just that. He's put Mike Evans back at the top as far as one of the top receivers in the league. Mike Evans, through 2 weeks, has 12 catches for 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. Plain and simple, he's their number one guy. As far as Chris Godwin, the other wide receiver, he's kind of been more of a possession receiver. He's been making catches to get them the first down and get them in the position that they need to be as far as the ball goes and helping Baker Mayfield out if it's a situation where he's covered down the field. They really need some help on the tight end position. They haven't had a good tight end production since Rob Gronkowski in 2021. So we'll just have to see if it's a situation where they can get more production outside of their wide receivers here. But Tampa Bay's definitely been a great surprise here, and for them to be with the Falcons and Saints at 2-0, it's going to be a dogfight in the NFC South just as it was last season. On the flip side, for the Philadelphia Eagles, they're in a very similar position. They're tied with two other teams at 2-0 as well, the Dallas Cowboys and Washington Commanders. Philadelphia, to me, they've looked solid. They haven't looked bad, they haven't looked great, they've looked solid. They looked solid against the New England Patriots week 1, and then as far as their game last week, they just looked solid against the Minnesota Vikings. I know they put up 34 points, but you also gotta take into consideration they gave up 28, and they gave up a lot of yardage to Justin Jefferson. So, Philadelphia, um, they've looked solid, as I said. As far as tomorrow night's game at Tampa Bay, 7:15 Eastern, I'm gonna take them to win this game close. I'm gonna take them to win this game close, to be honest with you. Vegas has them favored by 3, and that makes sense. Actually, I'm sorry, they're favored by 5. So I could see them winning by a touchdown, 27-20 over the Buccaneers. At that, looking at their schedule, kind of crazy to me because again, they're in a situation where they're with two teams that are 2-0 as well. So they're going to need to separate themselves. They haven't quite done that yet, and we'll have to see if they do that. Again, they're home against the Washington Commanders October 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 1st on Fox. They're at the Los Angeles Rams October 8th, 4:05 p.m. Eastern on Fox. They're at the New York Jets October 15th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern on Fox, and they're home for Sunday Night Football against the Dolphins, October 22nd, 8:20 p.m. Eastern on ABC. As I said, I got Philly winning this game close here today. I got them winning against the Washington Commanders. The Rams and Jets. The Rams only is going to be tough because you're traveling cross country. So that may change things as far as that game, but they're still the better team. With the Jets, you don't have to worry about that. That's close travel. And the Miami Dolphins, that could be the game of the next 5 that they got that could be the most dangerous, believe it or not. So let's say for the sake of argument, they go 4-1 over their next 5 games. That's going to put them at 6-1, and you're in the mix. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, let's take a look at their schedule and see what they're at. They're 2-0 right now as well. After today's game, they would be 2-1, and they're at the Saints, but I took them to win that game. They have a bye week, week 5, and then their next 2 games are at home against the Detroit Lions and the Atlanta Falcons. The following week, Thursday, you have a game at the Buffalo Bills, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, October 26th. I think they lose that game as well. So that would put them at 3-2. Or no, I'm sorry, I got them losing to Detroit as well. I said they would lose to Detroit. So at 2-3 over the next 5 weeks, that's going to put them at 4-3. So that's going to put them a little bit out of the lead, but not out of it by any means. The final game we're going to talk about here before we wrap things up for today is going to be the Rams at the Bengals. That game is going to be played at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Rams at Bengals. Joe Burrow is still questionable with that calf for tomorrow. I'm going to take the Rams because I feel like Sean McVay can scheme up something to attack that injury. If his calf is that bad, he's going to have trouble moving around. So I'm going to take the Rams to win this game, and that's going to put them at 0-3, unfortunately. They're at the Tennessee Titans week 4, and then they're at the Arizona Cardinals week 5. They'll be home against the Seattle Seahawks week 6, 1 p.m. Eastern, October 15th, before their bye week. If you're the Bengals, you want to get to that bye week as quickly as possible. You can't speed up time, but you got to get to that bye week as quickly as possible to kind of give Joe Burrow some time to rest that calf muscle. They're at the San Francisco 49ers October 29th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, and that's going to be on CBS. Whew, if you're the Bengals, this is going to be a rough year. This is not the way you want to start your year. And even if you go 2-3 over your next couple of games here with those wins against, say, the Cardinals and the Tennessee Titans, those next couple of games, that's still going to put you at 2-5 and still in last place in that division. If Joe Burrow is healthy, they're going to be good to go. If not, they're in trouble, plain and simple. So that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Hype Show. I definitely appreciate you joining me here and going through all the NFL action here, talking about Thursday night's game and kind of prognosticating the games to come here. I'll be back with you guys on Tuesday to go over all the highlights and go over all the games and how they went down on Sunday here in Monday Night Football. And after that, we're also going to discuss how things are going to be going for the preview on the Thursday Night Football game as well here. So thank you so much for joining me. My name is Big J All Day, and this is The Hype Show. Thank you so much. And again, we'll be back on Tuesday. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Check me out here on YouTube. You take care and enjoy the game. Have a good day. Thank you. Let's go. Come on.